Good evening and welcome to the East Rockaway special meeting and work session of the Board of Education. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:09 p.m. on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Old business.
Okay, some good news. We heard from New York State in regards to our energy performance contract. They are interested or ready to start in June. We will be replacing a boiler at Rame Avenue. We'll be insulating the different buildings and we'll be improving the lighting in all our classroom environments. They gave us an assurance that they will be done by the end of August. So start of next school year, we'll have new lighting, we'll have better controls on our heat, and Rame Avenue will have the boiler. And this is our energy performance contract. So we heard from the state and we're getting ready for that. So that's good news for the community.
Great. Moving on, we have a special meeting agenda tonight. In addition to the recommendation of personnel scheduling, we will appoint John LeBaire as interim director of facilities while Mr. Jim Daly is out on medical leave. Consent agenda. Create and accept, be it hereby resolved that the Board of Education create and accept a consent agenda with the following items. Recommendation of superintendent's personnel scheduling items 3A through G. Other items 4A through B. Budget transfers 5A. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Review the minutes of the following minute.
You have to then accept
I
the consent agenda.
accept the consent agenda.
Great.
Same all this?
Yes.
Regular board meeting minutes on March 11, 2025. Special meeting minutes on March 14th, 2025. Are there any questions in regards to the minutes of the March 4th, March 11th, and March 14th meetings?
No question from
No
me.
questions.
We will have a special meeting on April 22nd to adopt the budget in addition to the regular board meeting scheduled for April 23rd, 2025. Are there any questions regarding the agenda items for the next board meeting on Tuesday, April 22nd and Wednesday, April 23rd?
No.
That's good. Now at this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Van Wart for a budget session presentation.
Before we do that, can we just take a minute to ask the regular board members for this?
Review of minutes from the following meetings, work session and special meeting minutes on March 4th, 2025.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Van Wart?
Thank you. I guess while Mr. Van Wart is getting set for the presentation, tonight we'll have Mr. Murray, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Mr. Healy, and Mr. Gary Gregory, who will be assisting Mr. Van Wart in their presentation. Just a reminder, this is a budget presentation, and if there are questions, you could reach out to Mr. Van Wart at his office or me at any time. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Van Wart.
Thank you, Mr. DiTomaso. So tonight is our third budget work session for the 25-26 budget cycle. This is the last budget work session before the board contemplates adopting the budget. There will be a budget hearing in May. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about where the legislature, we believe, is going with the state budget, which is overdue at this point. But we do have a Legislative update, the one house budgets were passed in March. I'll talk about where I'm expecting the expenditure budget to be for 25-26. Not to bury the lead on that, but there's not much change since last budget presentation. Then we're going to get into our department, our final department proposed budget overviews. So we're going to have Mr. Gregory speak about athletics, phys ed, and health. Mr. Healy will speak about the special ed and PPS department budget, and then Mr. Murray will round us out by going through the curriculum and instruction budget for 25-26. I'll come back. I'll talk about the three-part budget, which is a required step as part of the budget cycle for public schools in New York State. And then we'll talk about how we're planning on funding the budget for 25-26 and any use of restricted reserves. So without further ado, so first week of March, shortly after our last budget session, the legislature, both the Assembly and the State Senate, passed their one house budget, which is a very good indicator of where the final budget, contemplating the governor's proposals, is going to end up. So we're at April 8th right now. The budget was due April 1st. We're a week overdue at this point. The legislature does extenders when we're overdue to ensure that New York State employees continue to be paid, and all the various departments in New York State supports continue to operate continuously until the budget is finally passed. All indications are the budget should be passing within the next week or so. We just don't know at this point. So as it relates to us for proposing our budget, we likely have to move forward with the state aid numbers that were in the governor's executive budget proposal, which are, from our perspective, are going to be pretty close to final. What passes through the one house budgets from the states, it's pretty consistent with the state Senate and the Assembly budgets. But just to highlight a couple things that came out of those two budgets, foundation aid increases. There's a floor in both of those budgets, 3% or 2.9%. That's pretty consistent with the governor's initial proposal. She had 2%. Doesn't really impact us because the initial state aid runs for foundation aid, we had a higher percentage increase than 3%. Both the Assembly and the state Senate proposed funding universal school meals for all schools. So that's another indicator that that'll end up in the final budget, which means we may be able to offer free lunch for all of our students for 25-26. Both of the houses passed a budget with a increase in the BOCES aidable salary cap. If that goes through, that would be increased aid back to the school district for any BOCES salary coasters. Both houses passed increased funding for pre-K per pupil. No additional seats were in the budget proposals, but additional funding per seat was in it, which gives us the ability to potentially seek additional CBOs, which become more viable for them financially to be able to offer pre-K services to our students. Both budgets also included an allocation of $19 million to pay down what is known as prior year state aid claims. So in New York State, there are deadlines on when certain claims have to be submitted by school districts to receive aid in a subsequent year. If those deadlines are missed, or there are adjustments made to the initial claims that were submitted, basically they put you at the back of the queue, and that aid doesn't get paid out until the legislature appropriates additional funding. They froze that funding for the past couple of years. This year, they're proposing to start allocating additional funding to it. So we don't have that much money in the prior year state aid claim queue, but it's good to see that the state is now looking to fund that revenue stream moving forward, because in a couple of years, we may start to see more money coming through. And last but not least, the state, both of the budgets are including an increase in the retiree income earning cap waiver. So for retirees that are continuing to work in school districts, right now there's a cap of $35,000 that they can make before their pension's impacted, which is a significant barrier for recruiting former employees or retirees to come back and fill positions that are hard to fill. Both of the houses are proposing to double that earnings cap, which will help schools across the state. As I mentioned, our proposed 25-26 expenditure budget hasn't changed since our last presentation in March. There were a couple of open items in our last presentation, non-public transportation being the biggest one, staffing, and where we're going to end up with our debt service. I'm pleased to say that based upon the deadline that passed for non-public transportation, we're not expecting a significant increase in what we initially budgeted for transportation. Staffing, there still are some things we're working through for IEPs for next year, which may result in additional FTE. But at this point, we feel comfortable moving forward with the budget as we proposed in March, taking into consideration some of the contingencies that we've already built into it as part of the initial budget process. So $46.971 million is what we're proposing for 25-26, which is an increase of $1.68 million budget to budget, 3.72 budget to budget increase. Our tax cap for 25-26 was 3.04, as I mentioned in the last budget presentation. And the portion of the school budget for next year that we would propose to fund with the tax levy would be an increase of 1.95%. So well under the tax cap and the amount that we're allowed to raise the levy up to. So we feel it's fiscally responsible and a good budget for next year. Mr. Gregory is doing double time right now. He's at tip off at the high school, so we're just waiting for him to get back here. So we're going to skip over his department presentation and come back to it. I'm just going to ask Mr. Healy if you don't mind. Of course. The special ed presentation first.
So I'll start off by saying, you can see by the presentation, we have some really wonderful photos to share with you all. A couple of photos from Cafe 217 at the high school, as well as the Foundations Fashion Show with a few of our students, and Down Syndrome Awareness Day, which is going to play a large role in our social work right now. To talk about the special education department as a whole, generally our philosophy is that we want to give the kids exactly what they need in order to be successful. You never want to overserve a kid with services and create sort of a learned helplessness. Our goal is to give them the right amount of support so that they can be successful in the classroom and ultimately in life. So in our elementary schools, we have RAIM and Center. The majority of our special ed services are housed at RAIM. We do have a few students with IEPs at Center, but the vast majority is at RAIM. That's where our special education self-contained classes are. That's where our co-taught classes are. And so that's where the majority of the services take place at the elementary level. At the high school, we have ICT, we have special classes, and then we have our skills and achievement class, which is our smallest ratio. Those students benefit from vocational training out in the community. So we have a variety of businesses that we work with, as well as Cafe 217, which is our in-house cafe that serves our staff coffee, tea, and snacks on a regular basis on Fridays. We've also had mobile cafes that have gone down to the elementary school, gone out to the community, to the senior center, so on and so forth. So I just want to call attention. This comic, when Ms. Freudenberg presented, she actually referenced this from her new teacher training. You can see there's a bunch of kids waiting to get into a school building where the steps and the ramp are covered in snow. I share this comic with all the new teachers, regardless of their special ed, general ed, at the beginning, as a way to demonstrate that special ed services or special ed co-teaching or any kind of specialized service that you provide is generally beneficial to everyone. So in this case, you have the gentleman's, the kids are saying, can you just shovel the ramp so we can get in? And he's saying, well, all the other kids, aside from the child in the wheelchair, are waiting for the stairs. So I'm going to shovel the stairs first. And the child in the wheelchair counters, well, if you shovel the ramp, we can all get it. So just a way of illustrating this. Some of our budget highlights. So we added our 612 classroom to Rame Avenue this past year. It is our smallest classroom in two ways. It's our smallest ratio of students to teachers, but it's also our smallest kids. And it is an absolute delight. It's not without its challenges. Our staff works very hard. But if you visit the classroom, which all of us have at this point, meaning administration, you'll see the benefit that it's had for our students. The fact that they're able to stay in district, interact with their more neurotypical peers. It's really been a wonderful experience for those kids, for the staff, for everybody involved. We've also added some additional staff, including a speech and language teacher. Last year around budget time, we had talked about adding a part-time speech and language teacher over the summer with new students entering the district and with CSEs wrapping up. those speech needs increased. So we wound up adding a full-time teacher in addition to the part-time teacher. That has been beneficial in a number of ways. The way we provide speech services in the district is a programmatic approach where students get their pull-out services, but then the teacher's also consulting and pushing into the classroom to make sure that those skills that are taught in the pull-out services transfer to the students' work in the classroom. So it's a really effective model, something we're very proud of. We have a really wonderful speech teaching staff. This is also the first full year with our in-district BCBA. We brought the district BCBA position into the district last spring. This year we have a new provider in the role, Ms. Bolaños. She's done exceptional work across all 3 buildings. She's really settled into the role, and we've seen the benefit for our students across the board. We also added the role of the special education chairperson at the high school, which had the added benefit of a part-time psychologist to help spread out Dr. Pizzina's caseload at the high school. That's Dr. Spohr, had previously been at Center Avenue School. She's done an amazing job just helping with leading the department. And she's also provided those psychological services, whether it be testing or chairing meetings to the high school staff. And then this was also the first full year of our in-district occupational therapist. Occupational therapists are getting harder and harder to find. Every district used to use the model of contracting out, or almost every district used to contract the services out, including us. It's no longer benefit to us to contract the services out. It's hard to find providers. And so we welcomed in our first provider at Rame Avenue, Ms. Mendelia. She's done exceptional work for us throughout the year, including working with our 612 kids. And again, we're seeing the benefits to our kids. So there are a couple of notable changes in the proposed budget. You'll notice that there's a reduction in the OTPT SPED consultant code. That is because we moved the money that we would have spent for consultation for contracting out the OT services has been moved to our staffing code. So there's no longer need to have that money in that code. That's where that reduction comes from. And then you'll notice an increase in both private school tuition and BOCES tuition. We had a private school student move into the district, in addition to increased costs with tuition and for our students who are residential for what's called maintenance or room and board. And then for BOCES, that's the cost of about 2 students who either moved into the district, already placed out of district, or who we didn't anticipate would be placed out of district at the start of the year. So, with the increase of those costs, I just feel like it's important to emphasize that an out of district placement is always absolutely the last resort when we've exhausted all other options. That is not just our own personal philosophy, that is also the law under IDEA. You cannot place a child in an unnecessarily restrictive environment. And so we have to really try everything within district to help that child before the determination is made to place the child out of district, and that determination is made by the CSE. That being said, we have a number of kids placed out of district who for all of our kids placed out of district, we're constantly monitoring their progress to see if we can possibly bring them back. We are returning at least 1 child to district so far with this CSE season, so we're excited about that. We're excited to welcome him into East Rockaway. He was actually, he never went to school here. He was placed out of district by a previous district and moved in. And so we can serve him and meet his needs. Okay, and then just some of the highlights for this upcoming year. We've increased the amount of money allocated to professional development. That's done very intentionally with the goal of improving our co-teaching partnerships, making those partnerships more effective for the number of students in co-teaching classrooms. And our goal is to provide those teachers with the tools they need to be even more effective than they already are. We would also like to completely bring occupational therapy services into the district by hiring a part-time occupational therapist. We've actually been advertising the position for some time. We think we might have some leads, and so we're excited at the prospect of having all of our OT provided in district. We're going to maintain our current speech staffing, which is necessary to meet the mandates of the IEP and to provide those robust services that I mentioned earlier. And then, we're always looking for opportunities to expand the scope of our program so that we can keep as many kids in district as possible. Because, the better we can serve our kids, the closer they can stay to home, the more involved they can be in our schools and our community, the better it is for everyone. And so with that, turn things back over to Mr. Van Wert.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
We're just gonna double back to the physical education, health and athletics department budget overview. Mr. Gregory is here now. Thank you, Mr. Gregory. I know you're running over here from the high school. Thank you for
Which
coming.
one is it? To go forward.
Just right here on the right.
Right. Okay. I apologize. I was actually scheduled to go last board session, and then I had tip-off night tonight, so that's I was over there. So I'm trying to get this going. All right. So for phys ed, health and athletics, for our teams, we have over 47 teams. We have 5 of them that are currently merged with Malvern. It's the boys and girls lacrosse teams, soccer teams, and girls tennis. We have intramural programs that we have brought in now. We have the challenge teams that we have brought in, and we have over 40 coaches and coordinators now. So for a small school district, that's quite a bit of teams and coaches. For our phys ed, we have 5 full-time teachers, staff members. We have a full-time teaching assistant, and we are currently utilizing an elementary teacher that is pushing in to do our health program down at the elementary school. So for our highlights over here for 24-25, one of the big concerns was the field and the viewing of the baseball and softball games. So the challenge was, how do we provide this for the community without trying to get those big bleachers, which we really couldn't fit on the field. So one of the problems we had were the current benches were very, very heavy for our facilities department. So what I worked on was we've got these 3 benches that are longer than one of our current benches. And when you put them together, they're also lighter. So it's a home run for our facilities department. We utilize them in the spring for our baseball team, for the parents of you. And those are the benches that are brought onto the field for the teams to utilize for flag football and lacrosse. The old benches that we have, which are the very heavy ones, we place them in the softball area because they're going to be more stationary. The one that's in the home box on the third base side, that one will be moved slightly because of the track meet, because we have the high jump mat over there. So we want to make sure that we have no injuries when it comes to that. But that was one of the big highlights that we did for this year. So thank you to Mr. Van Wert for helping out with that. I'm going to continue with the refresh of our gymnasium and our Hall of Fame. So for those that didn't know, all of our retired numbers were in the small gym. Nobody really frequents the small gym, so nobody really sees that. So I worked with Coach Flores, who's in charge of all that, and he said it was a great idea. I met with the teachers, and it was a home run. So we started bringing that into the big gym as well. So we started refreshing all the banners last year. We put the scholar athletes on there as well, the teams, and now we have our retired jerseys and numbers in there as well. We are looking to get 2 volleyball courts installed in the big gym. So one of the ideas we came up with is to make more space with the space that we have. So we have the capability now, right around Memorial Day, we'll be having this installed. So now we can have 2 teams practicing at the same time. So for instance, if we have the girls JV volleyball, the girls varsity volleyball, they could do that. In the winter time, where space is a premium, we can have both boys and girls, all we gotta do is pull the curtain, middle school teams performing at the same time, practicing. And then we also have the small gym available. We could start throwing the JV teams in there. And then once they're done in the big gym, we open it back up to a full court for our varsity teams to use. So that's something that we're excited to get. We incorporated our new middle school boys soccer team, first time in school history. And we're doing our refresh of uniforms. So our uniforms, we typically go anywhere between 5 to 7 years, depending on how well we keep them. So this year we bought the boys home jerseys. We're purchasing visors for the girls softball team. So we try to make it equitable for each team. Additionally, so in the bottom, you'll see the picture. We always get new things coming up with athletics. And one of the things for this year was it was mandated that we have shot clocks for lacrosse. So that was one of the big purchases that we budgeted for. I knew it in advance when I was prepping last year with Mr. Van Wart. I told him this is an absolute necessity that we need. So we had to buy a pair of shot clocks and we share them with Malvern, and then we bring them down back here when we host our games, our lacrosse games at East Rockaway High School. And one of the big things that we did was I worked with Mr. Van Wart to get our lacrosse and soccer teams to Malvern on time. What was happening was our bus drivers, because they had to make more and more runs, they were getting back to the school at 3:45 or later. So by the time they got up to Malvern, it was close to 4 o'clock already. So this has been a huge increase to the amount of practice time. Malvern has been ecstatic about it. Our kids and our families have been happy about it. So we use a one-way shuttle to Malvern with Independent, and then typically Joe, our bus driver, sometimes it's Jimmy, they'll do the return shuttle back home. For phys ed and health, we had the phys ed teaching assistant. We worked on professional development. And some of the big things we worked on is we have the software for FitnessGram. So I'm working with my staff to input that data. So what's great about that is now that we're putting that in, we could start tracking students as early as kindergarten through their career here at East Rockaway. So we could see the trends where we need to work on when it comes to fitness. And lastly, our supplies. Big thing for us was our unified PE class. We need to make sure that we had equipment that is adaptable and modifiable for them to use. Okay, so just a regular basketball may not be appropriate for everyone in that class. So we want to make sure that we had equipment for them. Okay, what we're looking to do for next year. So one of the things I pride myself on is I'm very fiscally responsible. I think Mrs. Millar, it's her favorite time when I say, pull down the shade, let's get the books out, and we start hitting everything that we're looking at, and we're doing that financial audit. So one of the things I actually worked on with Coach Pager is our football helmets. For those that aren't familiar, our football helmets have a 10-year lifespan. Whether they're used or not, it's 10 years. They can be defective in between that time, depending on any type of a hit. But at the 10-year mark, they are rejected. We can no longer use them. So the trend that we're having now is our enrollment's going down. So there's no need to have over 100 helmets for the program. So what we're looking at is phasing out 10 helmets per year, approximately, depending on how many were bought for that year. And we're going to reallocate that money. So one of the big things that they were looking for is, if you look at the picture there, is that end zone camera. So that's something that they've been requesting for a couple of years now. It does cost money, but the offset is fantastic for us. So we're able to purchase that with no problems. We're just reallocating the money in the lines. One of the big things that we really need to refurbish in that big gym is our keypads for the basketball hoops. They're all on one single key. The keys are breaking inside of the cylinder. Some of the cylinders are broken, so they turn all the way around. So sometimes we can't get the basketball hoops down. By digitizing them, we're able to get it where we can just hit the buttons. We can control which basket comes down. We could do a court. So if we do court 1, which are the main court, boom, you hit the button, both of them are coming down at the same exact time. We don't have to use that old key system and go to each single slot to get each basket up. We can just go from one area and get 2 to 4 baskets up at a time. That's one of the big things we're looking for. We're going to phase in the away jerseys for baseball. Softball is going to get their second jersey. I'm assuming it's going to be the away jersey, but it's going to be up to Coach Lores. He still hasn't decided if it's white or black, but we'll get to that. And the new pole system for volleyball, as I mentioned, we're getting the holes and the sleeves put in this year. but we'll be able to purchase that system for the poles and nets to be used. And our storage racks for baseball and softball. So this was something that wasn't thought of when they implemented the dugouts. So there's not a lot of storage in the dugouts. So when you walk in, the teams have their bags all over the place, their equipment. So we're looking to get cubbies, shelves, and hooks and put it up on the wall. This way, it's a lot more organized, a lot more neat, and this is something that the coaches have been asking for. So those are the big things that we're looking to do for the upcoming school year. In phys ed and health, there were a couple things. Center Avenue, Mrs. Smiley requested a portable scoreboard, which is not out of the realm, but it would take up his whole entire budget. So I was able to put a little additional money in there. And for our fitness classes, the teachers in the high school really wanted to update some of the equipment there. So again, that's in addition to their typical budget, because this is additional items that they want for their unit. And then in Ram Avenue, because we're having more needs for our students, our nurse down there needs storage space. So this is something that she needs for whatever it may be, medications or whatever it is that she requires. So those are the big things that we're looking for the upcoming budget. Are there any questions on this? Yes.
As far as I love everything that you've said so far. The storage facility for the baseball, is that something you think you can organize through the school? Like maybe a shop where they make it and do it? Or do you think it has to be something that's custom done? I'm just trying to incorporate the kids in.
I would, for safety reasons, I would like it to be where we have the company do it. This way we have, if there's any liability, it's not on us. It's on the manufacturer. So there are other school districts that have used these companies. In particular, if you go right down to Malvern, we're using the same.
They have the same type of setup?
Same exact thing. So that was something I noticed we didn't have right away when I saw that. And then the next, not the first year, the second year, Mr. Hickey had a scrimmage over there. He's like, took a picture. Mr. Griffin, we need this. I was like, all right, let me find the price. I'm like, oh, okay. So we have to work that in. So I really think that this is going to be a home run for them.
Okay, perfect. And then as far as everything that you've said, I'd love to come take a look. Everybody knows I like to see things. I know we had met about the bleachers. I would love to just come take a look and
Sure.
see everything.
Sure.
So,
So I know it's hard to see because it's kind of small. It's a picture up there.
no, I know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So basically, when you walk up to the baseball field, what we did is we made a secondary box. So if you know the pole system that we have
Yep.
and the netting, so we made it on one full length away from each other. So we have the 3 benches on each one, and I bought the ones with the shelf on it as well. So if parents wanted to lean on it or they want to put their bag on there, they could do that as well. The other thing that we're doing now is if the away team doesn't have spectators, we've been allowing East Rockaway to move over so more people can sit down.
Okay, great.
So then again, if there's like 1 or 2 parents, we would just move 1 or 2 of the benches over to the side to still allow for overflow. And then on the softball side, we still have the 1 box on the first base side. It's the same exact thing, but we have the big heavy bench is there. That's for the away team. On the home side, we have it on the third base side. We had to make it thinner, and you'll see when we take a walk, because we have the high jump area. So we didn't
I
want,
understand.
yeah. So well, we did make it longer,
Okay,
but just for
thank you.
reference. Yep. no
I have a
problem.
question while we're there.
Mhm.
So the benches are okay for the turf, right? I'm
Yes.
assuming? Okay. And then the helmets. So I remember a couple of years ago, there was a big thing about all new helmets being needed for football, right?
Yes, correct.
So those are the ones that we had, they're all still good, but you're
Correct.
not gonna be replacing them, or if you do have to, in a lower amount?
Yes. So right now we have more than enough to
Mhm.
cover what we have. So a few years, I think it was my first year here, it was right around COVID, is where we had a massive amount of students that came out. We actually received a donation from Hewlett, and those helmets were still good, and they still are in our system. They're painted orange now, so they're.
Okay.
But for now, the helmets, so each year, so what you want to do, if you're planning appropriately, what you would like to do for football helmets is budget enough for each year's. Because if you buy in one big bulk, that's a huge hit to the budget.
Yeah, and then they all go at the same time.
Correct.
Okay,
So that's what we're
I'm
looking
good.
at. Okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
And so for the proposed budget this year, as I said, you'll probably see a lot of numbers, high and low. Again, that was because Ari and I were working on looking at where we can move a lot of the money. So if you take away the nursing right there, a lot of the stuff is just moving back and forth. One of the big things you'll see is the curriculum items. That is not additional money that is being requested. That was Mr. Murray and myself, we were talking about just reallocating where that line is. So it's the same exact money, it's just in my area instead of the curriculum and instruction area. The nursing, so that is a big increase because of the needs that we have now. In particular, we have students that require an RN that come in early. So we have to get a nurse for early time. We try to offer for our current nurses extra time in the morning or in the afternoon. It's very far and few between when we can get it. There are a couple times in the afternoon, like there's one club down at Rame where the nurse stays. For instance, we had Nurse Smith. I think might have been sports night where she was there, so she covered. But typically we'll have some students that need to have an RN that go after school to sporting events or after school activities. So this has increased that line. That's why you're gonna see that big increase right there. Okay, any questions on that? So the nursing has been something that it's a requirement. So that's something we have to work on. And Mr. Van Wart knows I'm always asking them for money for that line. Okay, so the big one over here. So if you look again at the numbers, you're gonna see a lot of big numbers here and there. If you take away the big ones, the athletic BOCEs, the 4,300, that one in particular will always go up. That's something that's contractual with BOCEs. We were told a minimum of 3.5% increase because they're renegotiating the contracts for all of the officials. So that's something that I can't budget for within. But I'm always trying to look to move, reallocate money, and you'll see that here. If you total everything up aside from that line, you're looking at, I think it was like $475 or $500 increase. And the other one is the dues line. I was able to use a lot of the money that I have in my lines to cover that, but the dues is another thing from Section 8 and New York State Public High School Athletic Association that continues to go up. So that's something where it will fluctuate from time to time. But if you notice, you'll see, I'm going to come on this side. The helmet reconditioning right there, that's the 6,000 that we were talking about with the football helmets, and we just started moving that money around. So you'll see the give and take in certain lines, and there's always a method to the madness with that because we're looking to see what's appropriate for the school this current year. So next school year, we may need to keep that 6,000 back in reconditioning because we may need those helmets. So that's something Mr. Page and I will reassess year to year, and we'll go from there. Any questions on this slide?
I do have a question. Go ahead. You can.
Oh, no, it's a no.
I do have a question. Have you had to turn away anybody for any new clubs because we didn't have the budget?
For clubs,
As far as like any intramural sport or anything like that?
not so much. It's just we don't typically have enough students that want to do something. So I know girls swimming was something that had a lot of parents that were requesting it. When I put it out to the students for surveys and then meetings, we just really didn't have that number. So it's a give and take. I know that there's some kids that say they're interested in hockey, but then when I tell them when the season is and what times, they're like, oh, we're not going to do that because, oh, I want to do basketball. So a lot of times they don't realize, what it is that they want. But the one good thing is the boys middle school volleyball is something that has been just growing each year. and it's time for the team. So I'm excited to see that kick off. We also don't have a boys team in winter two. So I think it makes it even because girls basketball is in winter two. So now we'll have a male sport in there.
In
So-
middle school.
In middle school, correct. So winter two is in middle school.
Good.
Winter one's, so you got winter season, which is high school.
Yeah.
Winter one, winter two is junior high school,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
right? And I think that's it. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Murray. The curriculum and instruction.
Thank you, Mr. Van Wart. So ultimately, what schools do is teach and learn. And so the curriculum and instruction office is primarily responsible for the teaching and learning that takes place in our school system. And if you break that down, it's really three major responsibilities of and budget spending that comes out of the curriculum and instruction office. One of them would be professional development for our staff, making sure that our teachers and other staff are appropriately prepared with the most current best practices or regulations, standards, that they're ready for that. Another piece would be curriculum and instruction design. So making sure that we are bringing in the kinds of programs and doing the kind of work with our teacher teams to make sure that what is being taught is what the state is requiring and what best practices tell us should be taught. And then finally, supplies materials to make sure that the students have in front of them the right books, the right software, the right subscriptions and things like that so that they can do their best learning. So those would be the main categories that fall under the budget that I developed with Mr. Van Wart. So if you break that down into a little bit of a more granular fashion, these are really the key responsibilities of the curriculum and instruction office. We have 13 years with our students to make sure that they're ready for the real world, so to speak. And whatever their post-secondary options may be, whether it's career, college, or military, whatever choice they make after graduation, we have 13 years in which to prepare them for that choice. And so we start with early literacy and numeracy instruction, make sure that our youngest learners are getting ready to do that. We look at content area instruction across all of our grade levels. Assessment is obviously part of that, making sure that we are taking sort of a dipstick of how our students are doing along the way, aligning our curriculum to the standards, and as the standards change, making sure that what's being taught in our classroom changes along with them. I already spoke before about teacher professional development and making sure that all of our teachers are using the most appropriate and current best practices in teaching and learning. Part of what we do is review and adopt new resources as they become necessary. And when students ask me, what is your job? What do you do? I think the easiest way for me to explain that to them is that I'm responsible for all the learning of all the students and all the adults in East Rockaway, and to make sure that we remain a learning organization. So this year we did a lot of really wonderful things with our budget. These are just some pictures that help see what we've done in the curriculum and instruction office. We will be having our first ever AP capstone diploma graduates. That's something that we're really proud of. We don't have the exact number yet because the exact number is going to depend on this May's exams, but we anticipate having at least 5 and potentially as many as 10 students graduating with the AP capstone diploma. I know that's something that Mr. DiTomaso was most proud of because it was a multi-year plan to make that happen. In order to earn that diploma, students need to take AP seminar. They need to then take AP research. They need to do well in both of those courses, both of those tests. And they need to score well on a minimum number of other AP exams. So this is a really wonderful way for our students who know that they're heading off to college after high school to be very well prepared for that. We have increased exponentially the number of students who are earning the Seal of Biliteracy and the Seal of Civic Readiness. We've done that in multiple ways. One way is just through a commitment of the staff, but also by offering advanced level language classes. We're allowing more of our students for whom Spanish is a second language. And actually last year we had Italian and Chinese languages earn the seals by literacy. So we're having more of our students who are learning Spanish get the seal by literacy, but our commitment through our ENL teachers to make sure that our native Spanish speaking families and students are doing as well in English as they do in Spanish. We're having students whose first language is Spanish earn the seal by literacy by demonstrating competence and mastery of English, which is wonderful. We've been talking about PBL here for a couple of years, but we're in year 2 of that implementation, and that's something that's going very well. We spoke about that at a previous board meeting. iReady, again, we're in year 2 of our iReady implementation, and it is really inspiring our teachers to use data more purposefully in the classrooms. And it's really getting our students excited about their own progress and growth, and they're checking it and monitoring it themselves. The geodes up there, those are special resources that we brought into our primary classrooms. They're what are called decodable texts. In other words, they're books in which every word in the book, students should be able to read them independently. But what's different about geodes is that instead of it being, the old, Dick and Jane stories, they are all informational or nonfiction texts. So students are reading books they can read that they can do without teacher support. And while they're doing that, they're learning new things. So it actually advances one of the most important aspects of the science of reading, which is background knowledge. And the more background knowledge you have, the stronger reader you are. So we're building that background knowledge right from kindergarten. Up in the corner, the cross-cutting practices and core ideas, that is our New York State science learning standards, which are based off the next generation science standards. So Ms. Forbes has been working with our high school teams to change all of the instruction in our high school classes to align with the new approach to learning, where science is really more hands-on, experiential, problem-based, rather than just memorizing facts. They're working their way through problems. And then down the bottom, we've added or expanded the use of Read 180, Edward and Gillingham, to support our students who struggle to learn to read. Most of our kids are able to learn to read in the classroom, but we do have a subset of students who need more support than that. And Read 180 and Gillingham are 2 different programs that we're able to use to catch those students up. So that's all this year that we've been able to do. And as we look into next year, we're mostly flat. If you look at the overall increase in the curriculum instruction codes, that $12,000 increase is mostly accounted for through just inflation and the increases in costs with some of the contracts for programs and services we're already using. One thing that we're very excited about adding for next year, we actually are running a pilot of it right now in our schools, is what's called Magic School AI. Artificial intelligence is something that we have really an ethical obligation to make sure that our students graduate into a world that will be AI driven, prepared for that. So this year, we are working with Magic School AI to train our teachers up. And once our teachers are trained up, we'll be able to bring our students into that environment. This is a artificial intelligence system that is EdWa 2D compliant. So no student data goes anywhere. It's self-contained within there. So we don't have to worry about privacy needs. And what's really great is it's actually designed for schools. Just as a parent, I've used ChatGPT and Magic School AI with my own children at home, helping them with different things. And Magic School AI really changes what it provides to be very focused on learning and education. So we're really excited about that tool. And the price was right. It really was not a significant investment by the school district. You can see here that It's under $8,000 for all of our teachers to have access to that, and it's just really exciting. If we move on to what we're really going to focus on next year and where our money will be going next year, we're going to continue that focus in our elementary schools on the science of reading. As a matter of fact, on September 1st, a attestation from the school district is going to be due to New York State. We have to do a curriculum audit and review of all of our literacy practices K-3 and demonstrate to the state that those practices are aligned with the science of reading. That's a new state law that went into effect last summer. And this September 1st is when those attestations are due. So I'll be working on that with our literacy coach and our elementary principals. But we've been moving in that direction. So we're really not concerned about being able to demonstrate to the state that we're doing the right thing. But next year, our focus of professional development at the elementary schools will really be more on the science of reading. And you can see that Scarborough's rope is just a great illustration of that. Another thing that we'll be adding in is a program called Morpheme Magic. Our youngest students, we've had some really good programs for them for a long time, including foundations for several years, Integrity in the last year or two. But our older students haven't had a similar program for expanding their reading skills around phonics and word study. There aren't a lot out there. And so something that Danielle Schneider and I focused on this year was researching, reaching out to other colleagues, seeing what's out there. And there's a program called Morpheme Magic that we're going to bring in. And morphemes, to put it really simply, is just how words are constructed, the parts of words. So if you look at a word like, thinking of the atmosphere, you've got sphere as part of the word and atmos, and they both have meanings. And the sphere we all know is round, and atmos is a Greek root to that. But if you know what atmosphere is, you can figure out thermosphere. You can figure out spherical if you know what ICAL at the end of a word means. So that's the kind of work that Morpheme Magic will do with our older students, so that they'll be able to decode more complex words much more easily and become better readers that way. We're really excited about adding virtual enterprise up at the high school. This is a program that really teaches entrepreneurship, business design. So students in the VE program will create a business from scratch. They will then participate with schools from all around the island at trade fairs, where they basically try to sell their product, kind of Shark Tank it. And there are awards for the best programs, for the best marketing plan, for the best, various parts of a business model. So that's something that we're really excited about, to be able to add that elective up at the high school. We also, you can see a picture here. It's not the exact same thing that's going into our tech rooms, but we have a CNC router. And so next year, our design courses in the tech program are going to have updated and more modern equipment for our students to be able to work on the kinds of equipment they'd be working on if they go off into the design and the trades after school, after high school. So they'll have the same kind of equipment they'd be using in the shops they'd be working in. So we're really excited about that. I know that Mr. Howard and Miss Mia are excited to change what they're teaching so our students can take advantage of some of that new equipment. And then this year, we did run out of COVID federal funds for our summer program that we had run for several years. But this year we worked into the budget a new program for the elementary schools that we're calling Boost. And we're going to have a sort of a brief accelerated program for our students who are still a little bit behind in reading and math, to make sure that they stay caught up, and that when they hit September, they are as caught up as they can be. So that's really where we're going in curriculum and instruction. So I don't know if you want to ask questions now or at the end.
I have a question.
Sure.
The printer, is it like a 3D printer? And what type of?
Well, it's a CNC router. So it's not, we do have 3D printers in the tech room. And so 3D printers do exactly that. They use a filament to create objects that are three-dimensional. And so our students do use those for some of their design courses. A CNC router is more of a large platform device where students program in a design, And then that router can route that design into all different materials. So you can etch glass, you can burn wood, you can, depending on the machine that you get, you can do etching in metal as well. So you can really design a lot of different products. And the CNC router does it perfectly, as opposed to the old days where you were dragging the thing around and, oh, I missed it, got to start over. This is programmed, and I've even seen, we did some visits to some other schools, and, you know, the machine, actually even the nameplate you have in front of you.
here.
Yeah.
Those were done with a smaller scale CNC type router. We visited Mineola, and they have a large platform CNC router, and they actually have the students creating things for the district as part of their program. So it's a real true hands-on working experience that we can give to our students once our tech department really, you know, gets a handle on what all the possible uses of that device, which we don't even know them all.
I'm just happy you said, you know, this, because that's exactly what I thought it did. I
Yeah.
thought it did do all of those programs.
But it
I
does,
just
but
wanted
it
to
can do
clarify.
that in multiple materials
other
and in
things.
larger formats.
Okay, thank you.
We should mention that the Ed Foundation sponsored a grant, a partial grant for us in terms of budgeting. So
They gave us seed money for it. Yeah.
so we were able to purchase that, and now our kids are gonna, you know, my anticipations are gonna run wild with this. And I know Mr. Howard is very enthusiastic about it. So as to your point before about potentially making things for the school, this is a good avenue to do that.
Great.
I have a question too.
Yes.
So on the curriculum and instruction, you know, there's probably 100 line items in the official budget, and you pick 20, right? I look at this.
Part of those are building level codes more.
So, yeah, that's why I'm just asking, like, why are these? Are these all related to the programs you were talking about, the iReady and that stuff?
No.
Well, these are really more the district-wide codes. So we sort of highlighted the district-wide codes. There are a lot of other codes that are more building level that we didn't put just in this presentation
So I-
in the line item.
So I'm just asking, so, because it's the meat and potatoes of the district, of school, you know, it's learning. So when
Yes.
you have the teachers, the certified staff, and you have the increasing and decreasing of those numbers, do you ever talk about those? Or do we just match what the staff, like, I know I'm babbling and we're gonna, so
Are you talking about
Do you have a
payrolls, or are you talking
distinct-
about materials
I'm talking
and
about,
training?
you know, we have,
Talking about rolling over the codes year after year, is that what you're saying?
I'm talking about, yeah, I'm talking staffing levels.
Okay, go ahead.
So,
So staffing levels are not in this slide. So this slide is just resources, materials, professional learning, not salaries. But
Right.
go ahead with your question.
so my question is when we're planning and, more so on the grammar school level than the high school level, is the number of teachers and aides and reading specialists and math specialists, because, you know, I'm harping on that a lot.
Yes.
And, so, like, I think we have a reading specialist in Rame and Center,
We
and
actually have 3 reading specialists at Rame and 2 at Center. And the division of that amount is based on the
The
number of students and needs of the students.
so, and you know, I'm pushing, because I'd like to see math specialists.
And we have math specialists, 1 in each building.
One in each building.
Teachers. And then in addition to the teachers, we have teaching assistants, which we call them interventionists. So their title is teaching assistant. So we have additional teaching assistants in both Rame and in Center, one of whom in each building specializes in math and the other which specializes in reading. So we have at least 2 staff supporting math intervention and at least 3 staff supporting reading interventions in each building.
Okay, so 1 math and 1 reading in each building, and then 1 extra reading,
Yeah.
it seems like.
Yes.
And then, you know, I don't know if we want or need more. And that's that's the question I was
Well,
asking.
I can say that when we're building the budget, while it's not in my presentation here, certainly cabinet discusses staff basically starting in November.
Right.
And if I thought that we needed additional FTEs to meet our students' needs, that is absolutely a conversation I would have had. At this point, I do not believe so. I have already warned Mr. Van Wart that we probably will need to add an ENL teacher within the next year or so if our numbers keep going up at the rate that they're going. We added an ENL teacher this year, and there's a very good chance we'll have to add at least partial ENL teacher in another year or so.
And-
This year we're good, but in another year we may not be.
And ENL is,
ENL is English as a new language. So for
Right.
the students who come in not speaking English or not native English speakers.
right. So what happens if we get some child that speaks not Spanish?
Well, that's the thing. That's the beauty of ENL. ENL is not about Spanish. It is not
Okay.
bilingual. So in some districts, depending on the number of students you have per grade level, there's actually a state requirement that if you have at least 20 students who speak the same language on a grade level in a district, you have to open up a bilingual program, in which case that teacher would be teaching in whatever the language is, Spanish,
Okay.
Haitian Creole, and English. We don't have that. So our students have all different languages, and ENL teachers are not teaching Spanish to English. They're teaching English using different methods that work by connecting English to whatever language a child speaks. In fact, ENL teachers do not need to speak Spanish. They need to have some background in another language, but it does not have to be Spanish.
And then we won't go into it in depth here, but I do think, like, do we have a matching program for the parents at night? I don't know, but that's separate. So I just want to make sure that our reading and math interventions that are necessary, we have enough staff for.
I believe that we are appropriately staffed for our students' needs at this time.
Okay.
I have a question about the Magic School.
Yeah.
Can we, just a little bit more information? I know it was a new program that's coming in. And is it a program similar to what we're doing now with iReady?
No.
No.
So trying to put it in a nutshell, iReady is a dual program that assesses students in reading and math and uses that assessment data to provide a personalized learning pathway where students are learning at the level they're at to improve their reading, to improve their math. So students who are struggling, it's a little bit easier. Students who are excelling, they're getting enriched. So that's a great program for differentiating. Now, is there some AI algorithm that iReady is using to create those pathways? Probably, but that's not what we're using. That's not on our end, that's on the back end. Magic School AI is more like a ChatGPT. It's generative AI. So what that does is teachers and eventually students, again, we're not using with students yet, teachers can put in a prompt. So if you have any familiarity with, or if you've been reading anything about AI, the most important part of using AI well is the prompt engineering. So creating a prompt that you feed into the AI engine, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini, or in our case, Magic School AI, basically telling the generative AI what you want to produce. So I'll give you a perfect example. I send out what I call Mr. Murray's tip of the week, approximately weekly. And a lot of the time I take an article that I've read and I'll summarize it briefly and then put a link to the article for teachers if they want to read anything beyond my summary. Recently, there was an interview that I read, and the interview was fantastic, and it was long. And I thought to myself, it's going to take me 2 hours to try to summarize this interview because it was about a 10-page interview. So let me see what AI can do to help me with this. So I was able to upload the entire interview. I explained what I wanted, which was to take that interview and summarize it in approximately 8 to 10 sentences for an audience of professional educators in a K-12 school system. So the more information you put into the prompt, the better output you get from the prompt. And I made some changes. So it was my voice. I made some adjustments where I thought it missed a few things here or put stuff there that I didn't think was important. But it took about 15 minutes instead of 2 hours. So for teachers, I think the biggest benefit our teachers will see with at Magic School AI is in meeting the needs of the diverse learners in their classroom. So let's say I'm teaching a lesson on the Revolutionary War in 4th grade, and I want them to read this particular article. But I've got students whose reading levels go from here to here. So a teacher can put into Magic School AI the article and then tell Magic School AI, can you please create this article on these 4 different Lexile levels? For each Lexile level, please give me a different set of multiple choice questions on the same Lexile level. And with these lower Lexiles, only 3 choices. For the upper Lexiles, I actually don't want a multiple choice. I want them to be open response. And a task that might have taken a teacher half of a Sunday afternoon might take them 20 minutes of a really good prompt, which means now instead of spending all of that time and getting one good lesson in that same amount of time, they can have days worth of lessons at that same level of quality, meeting all of those kids' needs, something that's very difficult to do without that generative AI engine. So that's what we're looking forward to. We have yet to see what the students are going to be able to do with it. We're excited about that.
Few questions about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we monitor that we're giving teachers this tool
Mhm.
and it's AI? How do we monitor the teachers and make sure that, I'm not saying the teachers are going to do this, but just like anything that's AI, it's always a shortcut. Like you've said, it's a way of minimizing the amount of time that you have to put into to getting the information that you need. How do we make sure that the teachers are doing exactly what they need and that the rest of their day isn't just all through this magic?
So
Resource.
I don't see it as a shortcut. I see it as a tool to augment. It's almost like a built-in personal assistant. So I think it augments what teachers do. So teachers can't use this to skirt their responsibilities because they still need to know their students. They need to have and analyze the data to put in to figure out what those different levels are. But what they're able to do is they're able to get out of that generative AI engine resources they'd never be able to find anywhere else because these are novel resources. So instead of trying to find something that doesn't exist, this will create it and personalize it for the class. So it's not really shortcutting so much as it's augmenting how teachers can respond to the needs of the students in front of them.
And then if we're giving out different, like you said, different ways of students learning, which I'm all for, but if we're giving out different exams, how are we teaching our students to study and to do better if we're keeping them at that same grade level?
Well, I wasn't thinking of this for exams. When I made that example, it was really more classwork. So those teachers could work with students at the appropriate level. Part of the job of the teacher is to get students from wherever they are to that grade level expectation. So that is part of the work that teachers need to do. But sometimes you do that through scaffolding. So you take them there in smaller chunks or smaller steps. But yes, they are expected and they need to be able to get there. So this would not eliminate that. We would not keep students low. We're just using this as another tool we have, like iReady, to bring students up in a more accelerated fashion.
How are we going to go forward, once we put this program in place, how are we going to monitor it to make sure that our teachers are where they're supposed to be, our students are where they're supposed to be, and we're not just doing all of this through this magic program? That's my concern.
I'm not sure, I guess I'm not sure what you're asking, or what you think isn't going to be happening if we are.
I just want to make sure that it's not a program that's going to be abused and not do anything else. I want to make sure that we're still doing everything else that we're supposed to be doing and not have somebody that's going to use the program for only doing this.
I think
Do you understand what I'm trying
I
to
think
say?
I know what she's trying to say, but I want to then wrap that in with a question. I think what she's trying to say is the teacher's not gonna go in and press a button and the kids are gonna be taught by a computer all day.
No, that's not what I mean. I
Okay.
mean, like, how do we monitor that the teacher isn't just doing this for her class, that there's other things that are going on? I
But what
wanna-
kinds of things? I guess I'm not sure.
So
What
like
you
you
think is
said, how
many-
we're going to take this and let's say they're going to read something, but then ask them questions at the end and we're going to put it into different sections to make sure that everybody in the class understands.
Right.
Right?
That was an example.
But in an example, but if you take that example and if that's done all day long, and that's the only thing that this teacher is giving out to her students.
Oh, that would,
Or he's giving out to his students.
That wouldn't be the case.
maybe I could clarify a little bit. I want you think of AI as a think partner and a resource. So if I needed to get resources in this library and I needed to look through all these books, I have it at my fingertips in seconds. So I could really design instruction to really differentiate and meet individual needs quicker. Now, in the industry, in the real world, what AI has done, and this is an example, is if you're an attorney, they have attorneys who look up information, right? And those were jobs that they had.
I understand.
The
Right.
paralegals.
Right.
I'm sorry, Genevieve.
No.
What ends up happening is
It's
now
sweet,
instead of, so now basically if it's a think partner, I have more information at my fingertips and I could craft my lessons to these kids. Now, in terms of checks, they still have to turn in lesson plans. They still have to grade exams. They still have to do all the things they have to do. And as Mr. Murray mentioned, the scaffolding approach, I might need smaller steps to eventually get there, and you may need one step, but that's what it'll do for you.
That's,
So it's almost to save time to do more work.
But
I understand.
To give you a few more, like, hopefully peace of mind. One of the other benefits of Magic School AI, in addition to the fact that it's Ed Law 2D compliant and meets privacy standards, is we as a district own it. So we as a district can go in and monitor every user's use of it.
good. Okay.
That's A. B, the training we're giving to teachers, which we've already started, is specific to proper use of the tool. So teachers are being taught how is this tool going to improve and augment the instruction you're giving students? And that's the specific kind of learning we're doing with our teachers.
Questions for that. One, I just want to make sure that we're not taking away old school learning and that everything is done by this. That's my biggest concern.
It's not.
Well, define old school learning.
I'm an old school person. I still, like you said, when you come into the library, I want kids to know if they don't have this technology in front of them, that they need to go and how to look up something. I want to make sure that we have the background to teach
I have one thing
kids.
that kind of compares it that I
This is an
do.
additional tool, not a replacement.
Like,
I just want to make sure that we're adding this and not taking stuff away.
think of it as a tool where when Microsoft Excel came out,
You know,
it helped you, do one problem and you could drag everything down, but you still needed to know what the math
Right.
equation.
and that's what I want to make sure.
Because I
That,
use AI in work
Right.
sometimes.
That will not disappear.
Yeah.
The skill.
that's
will
what I
not
want to
disappear.
make sure.
It actually requires more thoughtful learning and instruction, especially around language and critical thinking, because they say an expression about data is garbage in, garbage out. And with prompt engineering, it even more so. If you don't craft a very strong, clear prompt for AI, what you get out of it will not
I understand.
correct. So we're actually going to have to teach our kids even more discrete and articulate language skills in order to be able to use this tool appropriately. And the basics still are the basics. Like, again, this augments what we do. It's not replacing what we do.
Right.
It's like the calculator.
Right, okay.
Can I,
And then as far as teaching the teachers, giving them instruction, is that done during the day when they're at work, or is that something, I just want to make sure that we're not removing teachers to teach them programs. I want to make sure that the teachers are there teaching our kids and we're not losing any instructional time.
Well, right
Instructional
now,
time.
the initial training we're doing now is on teachers' professional periods. So,
Okay.
or their prep periods.
Not
So,
the time.
so right now it's during the
Perfect.
school day.
Okay.
So we're not asking teachers to work beyond the day, but it's during time they would not have student contact.
Perfect. Thank you.
so I'm gonna go back on that a little bit.
Yep.
Mostly, so iReady, I love iReady. One, because it monitors, it assesses the kids and their progress when a lot of kids opt out. That's probably the number one reason why I love iReady.
Mhm.
And I know that it creates programs for the kids to help them with their weaknesses, because it learns about the kid.
Mhm.
And I thought that was great, because instead of a kid playing a video game, maybe they'll play, an alphabet game.
Strengths, by the way.
Um,
Weaknesses and strengths.
but I've also heard that the parents are being told that the kids need to spend a lot of iReady time. They need to log in iReady time. I don't see a kid being on iReady for 4 hours a week
No.
at accomplishing it.
No, not at all. The research, and iReady, Curriculum Associates is the parent company
Right.
of iReady.
Yeah.
The research that they've done years of, the optimum amount of time students should be spending on iReady is between 30 and 40 minutes a week. So we're talking 10-ish minutes a day is the optimum amount of time for students to meet growth. Now, in some areas, that would be exactly that, 10, 15 minutes a day. In some areas, like the middle school, it might be 20 or 30 minutes once a week instead, because it works better for the teacher schedule. So that varies, but the optimum time is in that range.
So why are the parents being told to get their kids on iReady?
At night at home as a homework, they're supplementing it, but they're not expected to do it for hours at all.
Okay.
If that's what parents are,
That's what they're
Hearing,
hearing, and they're hearing,
then we need to make sure that their message
that's
is
what they're
clear.
hearing, and that it's being pushed by the Board of Ed. I just want to be clear that,
I'm not sure whoever said that.
I don't know.
As
What I
far
would
as-
say this though, and you'll hear it at the April 23rd board meeting when the students present. I don't want to give away anything, but they like it.
Yeah, no,
They like it, so it's a learning tool that they like. So they're gravitating towards it and they're using it a lot. And you'll hear them say that.
and I'm a pro of it. I just
Yeah.
don't think
No, I know.
that it should be like,
It
doing a
sounds,
treadmill
yeah,
for
it
40
sounds
minutes.
like a miscommunication there
Okay.
that we'll try to clean up.
We can clean it out.
I've heard the same thing though. And as far as making sure that every kid has the tools at home to go on iReady, I think that's another thing we have to discuss.
Well, for third grade and up, they do, because
Right,
they
but
go home with their.
What about the
They
younger?
can log in.
The younger kids don't have Chromebooks
They
that
can
go,
log in though, through
But-
their home computer.
but there are kids that don't have home computers. And I think that's something that we as a board have to discuss going forward.
Well, we do have an obligation annually to do a connectivity survey. Ms. McCollum's not here to give the exact details, but
We can work on that.
I recall there's no family that has told us they have no connectivity at home.
And if they do, we'll.
I know my
We'll work
neighbor
with them.
logs in, her first grader.
Yeah.
On her
Yeah, the
computer.
state requires us to monitor exactly what you're saying. on a
Okay, good.
daily basis.
I just want to make sure we're not missing anybody, that kids aren't falling behind, because that's what we're all here for.
100%. That's great. 100%.
And we're,
Thank you, Mr. Murray. So New York State rules and regulations require school districts to present the proposed budget in three components: administrative, program, and capital. So every line item that's in the school budget is categorized in one of these three components. This is what we're proposing for 25-26. 5.7 million in administrative category, $35.4 million in the program category, and $5.7 million in the capital category. So 75.5% of the school budget proposed for 25-26 is in that program category. The administrative component of the three-part budget that covers expenses such as the Board of Education, our district and our building administrator salaries and benefits, our support staff in our offices, the entire infrastructure from a technology perspective across the district, all of the support services like our business office, our legal counsel, who's here with us today, any auditing service fees, our district clerk, all of the stuff that is kind of the overhead of the district, not directly related to the instruction and curriculum going on within the classroom, but necessary to support the instruction going on within the classroom. So the major cost driver in this category for 25-26 is the salaries and benefit cost increases associated with those support staff in our administrative and our support teams. Program component of the three-part budget. You could view this as everything that kind of directly correlates with student support, instructional staff, social workers, our mental health staff, our instructional materials, transportation to get our kids from point A to point B, our athletic programs, and our co-curricular activities. And this is where you see the biggest cost increase year over year in our proposed budget for 25-26, $1.3 million increase. The major cost drivers in this category for 25-26 is the special education PPS FTA increases that Mr. Healy so eloquently spoke about before, some of the out-of-district placement costs that have increased year over year, and then the instructional salary and fringe benefit cost increases associated with some of the contract negotiations going through right now. We're negotiating with the teachers a new contract starting in 25-26, as well as some of the contracts that we've settled over the past year. The capital component of the three-part budget covers a lot of the expenses to run a building, security, custodial maintenance staff, our operations and maintenance of the facilities, any of our debt service. So when we go out and get bonds to support some capital improvements and any capital projects that we have going on. So it's a $167,000 increase in the proposed budget for 25-26. And again, the major cost driver there is your custodial salary and fringe benefits. So just to recap, so this is how the school district funds its budget. It's predominantly through tax levy, state aid that we receive from New York State, and then local sources. Those are our revenue sources. So things like interest revenue, non-resident tuition, facilities usage. Those are sources of revenue that we generate as a district. State aid comes through two different categories: foundation aid, which is formula driven, and then expense driven aid, which is aid that's calculated based upon prior year spending. In East Rockaway, the tax levy supports about 75% of the school budget. 20% of the school budget is funded through state aid and local sources and other financial resources, which is the district savings, supports the other 5% of our school budget. So for 25-26, this is what we're proposing to fund the budget from a revenue perspective. State aid, we're projecting, is going to increase by about $900,000 year over year, budget to budget. This year, we're also expecting that we're going to be receiving additional state aid above and beyond what's in the state aid runs for non-resident homeless classified students. So we put in a fairly conservative number into the budget this year of about $150,000. I'm optimistic, based upon what our projections are for next year, that we actually may get a little bit more than that amount. But for the purposes of funding the budget for this year, we try to keep a conservative approach to funding, to projecting out our revenue. Pilots are relatively flat for this year, so that's your payments in lieu of taxes. So these are commercial entities that have negotiated with Nassau County to receive a reduction in their taxes, not tied to an assessment value, to incentivize them to open up businesses. We have a number of pilots in East Rockaway, and they pay a cumulative projected amount of $698,000. We're projecting for 25-26. We generate some interest on our cash balances. We're expecting that to go up a little bit next year. I'm projecting about $250,000 in interest revenue to support the general operating budget. That's before the interest we also generate on our restricted reserve balances. So that's not included in here because it doesn't support the 25-26 budget, but we do generate interest on any of the restricted reserves, basically our savings account. The other big categories is for next year, we are projecting non-resident tuition to increase slightly. We do tuition in quite a few kids in our life skills program. Each one of those kids that comes in, we get a state per pupil amount generated. So that supports a large portion of our budget. And I talked about this in previous budget sessions, but one of the goals we have as a district is to reduce our reliance on the appropriated fund balance, which is effectively money that was a surplus in previous years that we applied to the next year's budget. But our goal from a financial perspective is to get that number as close to zero and take away our reliance on that. And for the purposes of funding contingencies in the next budget, use restricted reserves. And the goal is we build a budget and we build in contingencies for the stuff that we just can't anticipate are going to happen. Things like we have a new student coming into the district requires special education services or placement at an out-of-district location. Those could be significant costs year over year. So we build into our budget contingencies for those projectable events, and we support it on the revenue side by using our savings account. If those contingencies are not necessary, then we put the money in at the end of the school year back into those restricted reserves for the next upcoming year to support any future unforeseen expenses. So for 25-26, we are looking to reduce our appropriated fund balance by about $150,000. This is the amount we're proposing from a restricted reserve perspective to fund the 25-26 budget, which is the retirement contribution reserve that the district has. And I'll talk about why we're proposing that usage. This is just a summary of what our restricted reserves look like right now. So we have about $80,000 in unemployment insurance reserve, which has to be used for expenses in unemployment. We have a TRS reserve, which is used for TRS contributions. The district pays a percentage of all of our TRS employees, teachers, and administrators based upon a rate that's set by New York State actuaries year over year. We have $1.4 million in that reserve. We have an EBLR, Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve, which is only allowed to be used for paying out post-retirement benefits. And then we have the ERS reserve, which is for our civil service employees, their contributions to the pension system. So as you can see here, the ERS reserve is the most robustly funded. We have enough money in this reserve for 8 years of ERS expenditures based upon our projections on the current year's ERS expenditures. So this is naturally the place that we think would make the most sense. That's a lot of money for a rainy day. We would need to have 8 years of rainy days to deplete this reserve. So we feel very responsible by putting this towards this year's budget to reduce the burden on the tax levy for 25-26. So from a capital improvement perspective, I talked about this in the last budget presentation, but there will be a proposition on the ballot for this upcoming May vote, which will ask basically the voters to support an increase in funding for our high school cupola project. So just to give you some background, in 23-24, we put on the ballot what they call a not to exceed resolution for $313,000 to renovate the high school cupola. It took a year for the plans that our architect designed to be approved by New York State Ed. We did a bid. The bid came back. The lowest cost bid was significantly higher than $313,000 because of inflation and because some of the materials that we were putting in the bid specs were priced higher than we were anticipating. We discussed this as a board and as an administrative team. Do we want to rebid this with lower quality materials, or do we want to seek additional authorization from the voters? We decided let's do it right. Let's do it with the correct materials that are going to reduce the maintenance costs once the actual cupola is renovated. And so based upon the advice of our architect, we think at most we're going to need $250,000 of additional funding from our capital reserves. And I want to stress that this project would be paid for through a reserve. So this is savings that the district has in place. So there wouldn't be no impact on the tax levy for next year. So that would be on the ballot. That's the only proposition that will be on the ballot besides the proposition to either support or not support the school budget. I'll just give some context too. This is the property tax levy increases that we've had historically going back probably about 8 or 9 years. We've tried to be as fiscally responsible as possible and not place as much of a burden as we can with the tax cap on the taxpayers. Over the past 4 years, we've been significantly lower than 2%, even though inflation has been significantly higher than 2%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of the last 10 years, we've been under 2%, which I think is pretty remarkable. This is just a recap from my last presentation of what a 1.95% tax levy increase means dollars for an average taxpayer in East Rockaway. It's a $166 increase in your tax bill. Annually, we're $13.85 a month. Just to give some context, we have polling information for other districts throughout the county and through the island. The average school district on Long Island is seeking an increase of 2.619% on their tax levy. Nassau County's at 2.553. Suffolk County's at 2.686. We're proposing 1.95, which I think is fiscally responsible, but also weighing the considerations of the taxpayer and putting forth a good budget. And that concludes our budget work session number 3. We mentioned it earlier, but we originally were planning on adopting the budget on April 23rd. We've moved that forward one day to April 22nd. The reason why we did that is there is a deadline on when the budget needs to be adopted for it to be printed for military ballots. So we have to actually move the day forward to be in compliance with the military ballot law, which is why the date changed. But after the 22nd, the budget hearing, which is the formal opportunity for the public to ask questions about the school budget, will be on May 13th. That'll be here at 6 p.m. in the library, and then the school budget vote will be on May 20th. And both will be open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
I just want to think that Mr. Van Wart and myself will be giving an abridged version of the budget at the PTA meetings in each building. So we already had an invitation from Ream Avenue. We'd be glad to speak we promise it won't be 2 hours, but we'll speak 15 to 20 minutes about the budget. And, we're waiting to hear from Center Avenue in the high school. We'd be glad to do that. And that's also an opportunity for the taxpayers to ask any questions or informally ask us questions about the budget.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so we have the reserves, unemployment, the liability reserve, teachers' retirement, employees' retirement. Then we also have a capital reserve that you're not mentioning.
Correct. That can't be used to support the school budget. That's all. It's for capital improvements only.
Understood. So the balance in there, so that would only appear on propositions is what basically we're going at,
yeah.
unless there was an emergency and the board approved the use to replace the water main that broke or something.
The capital reserve is unique in that you can't take money out of it unless the voters specifically authorize, whereas these other reserves, the board has the ability to authorize it.
Okay, so since it's a budget meeting, I don't want to take a long time on it, but the capital reserve is there, and besides the cupola this year, there's nothing, but I thought we needed new roofs.
We have the upcoming work for this year will be the high school cupola, assuming that the proposition
Passes.
is supported by the voters.
Right.
That work would start in likely July because we've already received state ed approval for the project and permits. It's just a matter of bidding out the project and awarding it to someone. Then we also have the energy performance contract, which Mr. DiTomaso
Right, it's
can
ongoing.
update on. So that is expected to start in hopefully June and carry through the end of the summer. There's some small residual work that'll go into September, but the majority and meat of that energy performance contract will be done by the end of the summer.
And that's separate money. That's already put in that pot. So then we have 3 million-ish, I think, sitting in the capital reserve.
4 million.
And that 4 million. And then, just kidding. So then we have roofs in the future, I guess,
Yep.
next year. And
Roofs, windows, the Center Avenue may need boilers, and then
Actually,
that's something we're looking at also.
So-
Once the roof gets put
so
up,
I know you guys talk about these things, and then you say, okay, we're gonna have a proposition on that. I would like to be part of that conversation.
we actually give you perspective. Architect comes in every 5 years and does what's called a building condition survey. That building condition survey has all of the recommendations of the basic blocking and tackling of running a facility,
Right.
what needs to be updated. That formulates the basis for what capital projects need to occur
Okay,
in the future. So we have that last year. That's what I'm using to build the 5-year capital plan, and identifying funding streams, either be through transfer of capital in the school budget, capital reserves, or last resort would be financing.
okay. I just think the board should be part, because those are big numbers when they do come in.
Mhm.
Okay, and then just one question on if they do free lunch for everybody, which I'm hoping they do, does that affect our budget at all?
No,
Or that,
all
because the
paid.
kids pay.
There's
So
a
it's
separate
just-
lunch fund.
It's just kids not paying, that's all.
It's a separate lunch fund. Basically what happens right now is if a student has free or reduced lunch status, we get a reimbursement back from the federal government to New York State Ed, who passes the money on to us to pay for basically the cost of providing that meal. Students that don't have that status, the cost of the meal, the cost that we work with Aramark on is supposed to pay for the entire cost of the unit cost of the material.
So,
In the future, the state would step in and make up the difference.
okay, and then the pre-K, if they do increase the money per seat, right now, we're kicking in, the taxpayers are paying more money per seat, so that would just
It
64
could
seats
reduce-
we have?
Yeah.
65, so if we get another, we can get $100,000 or $200,000 back.
No, I mean, the general operating budget is supporting maybe like $24,000 of the pre-K expenditures.
Okay, I thought it was,
100 per kid.
400 times 64,
$100 per kid times 65.
It's 26,000.
26,000, there you go.
I know.
Mike, I have a question about the lunch. It's not even a big question, but if everyone's getting free lunches, do parents still have to put money in for everything else that they want? Like if kids want snack, and I know that there's always a situation with that.
So a la carte is not included in that.
It's not.
Yeah, this is a traditional breakfast and lunch.
Okay. Okay. Breakfast and lunch. So how,
So if you want to get, like I did when I was in high school, order 3 cookies, soft baked cookies and 2 Snapples, that's not part of this
okay.
program.
And it'll be the same way where they just put the money in and they'll have to work from it there. Okay. And are we able to, because if everything is free, I'm assuming we're going to get more kids that are staying and more kids that are coming in for breakfast.
Participation would definitely increase. We actually ran
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
yeah, we actually ran a free breakfast promotion in partnership with Aramark the week coming back after winter recess, because we're trying to increase breakfast. Our breakfast numbers could be a little higher. So one of our goals was to try to increase participation, show off some of the menu items, because there are some items on there that I think students would really appreciate if they actually tried it. So the free breakfast week, we basically made an investment by offsetting the cost associated with those meals out of our lunch fund, where we had some extra funds available. And what we're seeing now is participation that week jumped up significantly.
Okay.
And it's coming down a little bit, but much higher than what before we did the breakfast promotion.
When it was free, we were right up there.
Mhm.
And is it mostly healthy options, or are we sugaring these kids up before they go to school? I'm
There's-
curious.
There's strict requirements.
Very strict, yeah, we can't sugar them.
In fact, the packages of snacks, if you look at them, they're actually different. Like the same Doritos is not the Doritos you can get in the store. They have different ingredients, different nutritional value, because they have to meet a very strict
Guidelines.
guideline.
Yeah.
Well, if they're eating Doritos for breakfast, we have a problem.
No, I'm giving you an example.
And I'm being a
They're not the Doritos that you think they are. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Go right here.
Just take a look here.
Yeah, we did all of this.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn today's Board of Education special meeting, work and budget work session, and enter into exec session to discuss contract negotiations? Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:48 PM?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy and have a great spring break.